Good evening, everyone, Venerable Sirs and ladies and gentlemen. This evening, as promised, I will talk about the Panca Niyama, or the 5 laws of cause and effect, which determine our lives. And I will just briefly mention those 5 laws in the Pali language first, and then go one by one to explain a little bit more. So the 5 laws of cause and effect, the Panca Niyama, are the, let's say, Bija Niyama, the Uttu Niyama, Kamma Niyama, Chitta Niyama, and the Dhamma Niyama. Now, Bija Niyama means the law of the seed. Bija, I think maybe even in Bahasa Indonesia you may have some word called bija for seed. Right. So this law of cause and effect in the Bija Niyama has to do with hereditary things. Maybe you could say with the genes that we get from our parents and forefathers. We can call it the biological law of inheritance. And in this way, our body may be susceptible to some kind of diseases that we may get from our grandparents or parents. And sometimes we may look like our grandfather or grandmother because of this kind of law of the seed. Now, for instance, if you have a mango tree and you put a mango seed into the ground and you put enough water and you have good soil and enough sunshine and things like that, and you look after it, then you will most likely get a mango tree and not an apple tree or a pisang tree, you see. So that is, unless a miracle happens, of course, but that is very seldom. Normally the tree is already in the seed, so to speak. And therefore we are partly determined by that law of the seed, the Bija Niyama. Now also we have what is called the Uttu Niyama. That is the law of cause and effect in the field of the environment or the climate. The climate in which we live. Not only the physical climate, such as whether it is cold or warm or dry or wet, but also the social climate, the kind of friends that we have, the teachers that we get, and the the environment in the society that we live with. All that has a big influence on us, and we call that the Uttu Niyama. Not only that, but also the what we call economic climate, and even the political climate. You know, in some countries, for instance, you may not be able to practice your religion. No freedom of speech, no freedom of enterprise, no freedom of education, and things like that. So that has also a very big influence, the political climate, on what we can do and what we can make of our lives. And therefore, that is also partially determining factor of what we can do in our life, and therefore we call that Uttu Niyama, the law of cause and effect of the climate, all these different types of climates. Then we have what is called the Kamma Niyama or Karma Niyama. You know, Kamma in Pali, karma in Sanskrit, karma I think in Indonesian also. So the Kamma Niyama is the law of cause and effect according to our karma. And that karma seems to come from a long way back, from the past. Not only the karma in this lifetime, but karma from previous lives. Not just one or two, but maybe hundreds of previous lives. We don't know how many times we have been born again and again, and where it all came from. We cannot find that out anyway, but there is this law of cause and effect in the moral and ethical sphere, which we call the law of karma. So karma is actually created by the intentions with which we do something, we say something, or we think something. With the intention with which we are doing something based on what we call kusala cetana or akusala cetana, skillful intentions or unskillful intentions. So the unskillful intentions would be if you think and say and do something based on greed, hatred, and delusion, lobha, dvesha, and moha, lobha, dosa, moha. And that leads to your own suffering and that of others. And we as human beings also receive the results, what they call the vipaka, of previous kamma in this lifetime. We may be receiving kamma from this lifetime also, what they say, ditta vedaniya dhamma karma, that is that result which you can see in this lifetime, but some of the results come from karma that we have done in previous life, maybe the immediate previous life or any previous life before that. And in that way, the Buddha actually said, karma is very difficult to understand. You cannot really reason it out with your limited thinking mind, your logical mind, and therefore we call it an achinteya, or an unthinkable law. Not that we cannot think about it, but we cannot find the total answer or the final solution to the problem of where does this karma come from. Because most of it we don't actually remember. You may not even remember what you had for breakfast on the 3rd of January, do you? Huh? So let alone what you did in your previous life. Huh? So therefore, that does not mean that even though we don't remember it, that there is no such thing as the law of karma. The law of karma is there, but we don't remember all the things that we did, and we cannot figure out exactly where everything comes from. Sometimes a very good person meets some painful things in their life. They have bad luck, or what we call, kind of dukkha, and they cannot figure out where this comes from, because that person has always been so good. And some people who are just living roughly and no good, sometimes they get some good things happening to them. But that doesn't mean that that is a result of this lifetime's karma. It may be something that comes from the past. So whatever it is, this karmic law also determines part of our life. Some people think that everything is due to karma. They say it is only karma which determines everything in our lifetime. But the Buddha said, no, it is not the only factor, but it is a very strong, important factor. Because these other things, like what we just mentioned, the bija niyama and the uttu niyama, also are influencing us, and it's not only karma. So then we have what is called the citta niyama, the law of our minds. Citta is mind, if you translate it to English, and mind, of course, is a complex thing, but with our mind we can do a lot of things. And Buddha also said the mind is the forerunner of everything. Mano pubangama dhamma mano sattha manomaya. In the Dhammapada you find that verse, that mind-made are all these things. The mind is the forerunner of everything. If you want to say something, do something, even think something, your mind has to first have an idea and willingness, and then another idea comes up, then you translate it to speech, then you can translate it to action. So the mind itself also has the possibility of understanding and of realization of the truth, realization of the things as they really are. And that is something that is unique for the human beings, in contradiction to other kind of beings like most animals. Some animals come very close to the human beings, but still it seems that the human being is the one being that can think for itself, become self-conscious, and also to decide what is good and what is bad, and to do something based on reasoning and not only on instinct and things like that. So the mind also has the power to do something or not to do something, or to do it in a different way. To choose, for instance, not do something that is considered to be unskillful or akusala, and to decide to do something which is good or skillful, kusala. In that way, the mind itself has a certain power to influence our life. For instance, when you meet certain karmic circumstances, and then how do you react to that? Do you react just according to your old conditioned patterns, or do you try to understand what is happening and maybe make a change and not to react in the same way? Or because of your meditation and your power of mindfulness, you can decide not to just react in the old mechanical way, but maybe not react at all, or to react in a positive way. So with that power of mind and that law of mind, the citta niyama, we can actually change our life, and even we can change our karma, and perhaps we can even get out of that law of cause and effect, which rules us by realizing something which is beyond logic, beyond cause and effect, beyond time and space, and which is called nibbana, that is also to be realized by the mind. So this realization of nibbana or nirvana is something that can really change our past karma and change our life completely. Well, there is another factor of cause and effect which we call the Dhamma Niyama, the law of the cause and effect of natural causes. Natural causes could be, for instance, earthquakes, tsunamis, or other kind of influences of the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars. Actually, the natural laws, they also include that. I don't know about Chinese people in Indonesia, but in Sri Lanka and in India, most people, when they are born, they get a horoscope. Do you get horoscope also? Yes.
Chinese horoscope.
Chinese horoscope, okay. Very good. And so the horoscope actually gives a picture of, the kind of position of the stars and the moon and the planets at the time of birth. And that can very much determine also the way that you are going to live. But on the other hand, it is not 100% determined, because with your mind also you can influence the way things go, and you can influence your life by making certain decisions. Or if there is a bad period, for instance, in your horoscope, you can do some good things to overcome. We have things like what they call small karmas, not heavy karma, but light karma that can be overcome by doing something good karma. Then you can counterbalance and make that karma inoperable or ineffective or neutral. So in that way, we have the influence of all these laws on our life. The law of the seed, the law of the environment, the law of the mind, the law of the karma, and also the law of the natural forces. And all of them in combination, they influence our life. So it's quite a complex kind of thing, complex number of factors, and not always easy to understand where it comes from. Now, if some people really believe in karma, and they accept that this must be due to my karma, and they are satisfied with that, then it makes life quite easy, doesn't it? It may be like people believing in God, that God does everything, this is the will of God, and I accept it, and that's it. So then we don't ask, why did this happen to me, and why does it happen to them, or to him or her? No, they just accept it. And of course, that may be very good if you can do that, but if you have questions about it, then of course you may wonder why this happened and why that happened, and try to find out. But the problem with karma, what I already mentioned, is that it is so complex that we cannot really find all the reasons why some situation that we are in now is happening. And therefore, perhaps we have to use what is called our mindfulness and our wisdom and our balance, what is called vipaka, even-mindedness, to face all the different kind of things that happen to us in this life. If you can face life with equanimity, with even-mindedness, and you have enough strength to muster up good thoughts, like karuna and metta and mudita, then you can also change your life because of these good qualities. So we cannot really change the past, can we? The past is really gone, it's already conditioned, and it will have its results from moment to moment in the present and in the future. So we cannot really do anything about the future as such. We cannot do anything about the past as such, but we can only act or react in the present. And if we know how to react with a positive mind and counteract the negative influences from the past, perhaps we can also change our life and become a better person. Or if we know how to, for instance, let go, letting go of what is called the past, not to cling to the past, not to cling to certain circumstances, or not to cling to certain patterns of conditioning that you may have in your mind, especially if they are not good, but just letting go of them and not to repeat, then also you can change your life and you can become a better person. So a lot of this is going together with the law of the mind. The mind itself is also a complex thing. If we look at the what is called the Panca in Buddhist teachings, the 5 factors, or we look only at nama and rupa, then we have nama as the mind and rupa as the body. But nama consists of, for instance, feelings, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana. So vedana would be feelings, both physical feelings like sensations, or also mental feelings such as emotions. And vedana sanya. Sanya would be kind of perception that you have, the perception you perceive your environment. And even you remember things, that also comes under sanya, remembering. And then sankhara, which means not samsara, but sankhara. And sankhara meaning the intentions with which you do something, volitional activities. And the vijnana would be the consciousness, the consciousness of seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting, touch and thought. All those 6 types of consciousness also are part of your mind. So mind is not a very simple thing, and we don't even know exactly where the mind is situated. Some people, when they talk about mind, they point at their heart, sort of, in my mind. Some people say my mind is like here, but in Holland if you do this, that means you're crazy. Or here also. Or here, And when a Japanese person talks about me, they say, pointing at their nose. I don't know whether they identify themselves with their nose. But where the consciousness is seated exactly, in some of the Hindu scriptures you also find that it is close to the heart. It's not the physical heart, but somewhere maybe around the heart chakra. But then it is not the same as the brain, definitely. Although the mind uses the brain as a kind of maybe word processor, but the mind is much more than just the brain. If the mind and the brain were the same thing, then when a person dies and the brain is dead, then that would be the end of that mind. But what about rebirth? What about memories of past lives and out of the body experiences, and near-death experiences? All that are experiences that people have with their mind, and it's not only in the brain. So the mind itself is very complex, but still, and we don't know exactly where it is, but it is usually somewhere around us, and it can also travel long distances. For instance, when you make a telephone call to your relative who lives in England or in America or someplace, or Australia, and then you say hello, and they say, oh, I was just about to call you. very often a good relative, friend, mother, child, they may be having that experience that they had the same thought almost at the same time. Sometimes difficult to know who was thinking first and who was thinking second. But anyway, it means that your mind can travel very fast. Before you can pick up the phone and make the call, it has already traveled 7 times around the world, they say. Very fast. And it also has that quality that you think of that person and only that person gets your message, not another person in the same room or the next door neighbor, and exactly that particular person. So that shows that your mind has what is called a multi-band transceiver, transmitter and receiver together. Multi-band means just thinking of that person reaches that person, a certain frequency. So that is also quite wonderful that the mind can do that. It's a kind of what we call telepathy, traveling of the mind, and then what is called astral travel and things like that. So mind is not just one thing, it has many, many dimensions and so on. So today I think, having talked about these different factors, maybe you might have some questions regarding what I have said. And if it is okay now to go to the question and answer session, then we have some more time for that. So please.
I just have some questions. Like the first, I have read in the book, like we have to try to understand, accept and letting go the things happen in my life, in our life. But I still don't get it how to do that. The second is like how to forgive ourselves if we thought we have do a lot of mistakes. Maybe not the real mistakes in that by law, but just feel. And the third is you say that we shouldn't do some things according to what Loba, the greedy things. And how to decide the things if someone offer you like a lot of money and you have to choose between the two options, which one you have to decide? Should you follow your heart or you should follow the other? Okay, he give me a bunch of money, so I choose that. Thank you.
You know, for instance, if you know in the case of money, if it is black money or bad money, then it may be wiser not to accept it, you see. And if you think, well, yes, but I really need it, I can use it, and it is not out of greed but out of need, then perhaps, yeah, if it is bad money, maybe still, you know, you get some, it's not very kusala to use that, but still, let's see, you know, sometimes they say not to steal, yeah, but there are cases of very poor people who really are very hungry, and if they take a bread out of the bakery shop, then sometimes we can forgive them. But if one has already enough and there is a lot of greed for more and more and more, is never enough, then of course it doesn't make oneself very happy also. So you have to sort of look at the intention also with which you are receiving something, and what you are going to do with it also, for instance. You know, that also makes a difference. Maybe half for yourself and half for charity or something like that may be good. The first question was about letting go and you know, not clinging and letting go, but how to do it. Yeah. Well, you know, in the meditation practice of vipassana, we have that kind of practice. You have a bloody nose? Looking at your own mind, for instance, and the things that come to you during your meditation, if you see that it is something from the past which is not necessary, or just thoughts which are unnecessary, then you learn how to let go by just looking at it and seeing that it is not really necessary at that moment. But I suppose you are thinking of something else when you're thinking of letting go. For instance, you cannot physically let go of your husband or your children, or your house and things like that, letting go. That is not meant by letting go. But the fact is that if we have a lot of attachment and a lot of craving, then we also have a lot of fear. Craving and attachment lead to fear. So if you can live together with people, not on the basis of craving and attachment, but maybe with a sense of responsibility and a sense of karuna and metta, loving kindness and compassion and things like that, and sharing, then you have less fear and less worries, probably. So it is more the mental attitude, not the physical letting go in that sense. And also, if you do lose something, for instance, a material thing that you really like, maybe you like a certain vase, crystal vase, let's say, and then it falls on the ground and there it goes. Then you have to look at your own mind, what's happening, and it was so expensive, and all these kind of thoughts. If you have a lot of thoughts like that, then you are really attached to it. But then you have to learn to let go when the situation is like no choice. It is to accept the situation. And I think I have more or less forgotten the middle question. The second one, do you remember? What's that? Yeah.
The second question is how to forgive ourselves if we thought that we do some mistake. And for the number one, actually, what I mean is like how to accept, understand, and letting go something like the hatred, the fear, and something like the sadness, the anger, like that. It's not really the material things. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that letting go does come about by understanding, I think, and also by realizing, for instance, what we call anicca in the transitory nature, the changing nature. If you really see that, then you can accept, oh yes, this is changing, that person is changing, so why should I cling, why should I have an aversion, why should I have antipathy, things like that.
I have a question. Can you please explain about the practical guide of the art of letting go? Because for me, this concept is easy or not easy. It can be understand, but it is difficult to be practiced. Thank you.
So you are expecting a couple of recipes. Yes. Well, just what I just told to that lady also, for instance, if something that you own breaks, let's say a material thing, then you can have a look at your own reaction. You can have a look at your own reaction, whether you are feeling upset or angry, and thinking about all the time. When you do that, or if you find, hey, I don't feel any difference, you see, that is just, if you do find those thoughts, then maybe you have to think a little bit about how everything is actually changing and breakable and not forever and actually a source of dissatisfaction anyway, is not really me, mine, my own. Even my body is not really belonging to me, myself, in the end. I cannot keep it the way I want. So what about this? That would be a way of contemplation on those words, on those thoughts, to make clear to yourself that it is like this, and then accepting the situation, and then you can let go of it. So it's sometimes much more difficult when it comes to, let's say, a human being who passes away, especially when it is like your father or your mother or, you know, a very close friend or something like that. Then it is much more difficult, especially if you haven't sort of prepared yourself for such things with like contemplation on, you know, the fact that everyone has to die. It's like Prince Siddhartha when he went for a round in the city of Kapilavastu. He had never seen, you know, sickness and old age and death. That came like a shock. But if you familiarize yourself with it, not that you want to become sick yourself, you know, but that you realize, yes, everybody, or this is it, and yeah, with some kind of contemplation. Actually, I think those three characteristics of life, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, all those three, when you just contemplate about it, that makes it clear, yes, this is also anicca, this is also dukkha, this is also anatta. And when you see it in that perspective, then you have some wisdom. Usually it is because we don't have the wisdom at that moment. We forget about the wisdom, and we think this is, you know, me, mine, myself. This is beautiful. This I love, and then you have the attachments. So when you think of the things as they really are, what we say, those three characteristics, tilakkana, then it helps you to overcome the suffering, and also gives you the ability to let go.
I'd like to ask, just now you mentioned that part of the Utu is a social environment, the kind of friends that we associate with, and also in the Bangladesh that was quoted that it's wiser if you associate with the wise and avoid associating with the fools. So in real life, in daily life, when should you draw the line? Like, this is it, there's nothing you can do for this person anymore? Or else, if your mind is not strong enough, you will also be dragged down into the things that is unskillful. Thank you.
Yes. In daily life, you do meet all kinds of people and all kinds of situations. And although the Buddha says to try to avoid association with the fools and try to associate with the wise, sometimes you cannot really avoid being with people whom we would call, you know, it's a bit too much to call them a fool maybe, but maybe unwise, you know, lacking wisdom. And then to try and make people wise, you know, try to convert them to wisdom, so to speak, doesn't always work. Not everybody is ready to listen to, for instance, Buddha's teachings. Sometimes it becomes very tiresome and very disappointing for somebody who is really trying their best, but there's no response. Or sometimes it may have an adverse effect, a negative response. So I would think you can try, but when you notice that people are not really ready for it, then maybe just become sort of neutral. You know, you don't have to have aversion against people without wisdom, but you can have a kind of neutrality, and maybe also, yeah, kind of heart of karuna, but you know, not condemning them for that, but just saying, yes, not everybody is at the same stage of development. So what to do?
I just want to forward a simple question. That is, if there is someone from another religion ask me, what is the best religion? How have I to answer that question? And what is the reason? Thank you.
Very sharp question.
Yes.
But good, this.
Interesting question. Well, I will tell you something from my own experience, because I have been in a group of interreligious dialogue, living together with people from different religions, especially Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism and Hinduism. Only once we had a Jewish partner. Most of the time it was between 4 religions. And one of the principles there was not to, not to feel yourself superior to the others, and not to condemn the others for their type of belief, but try to understand what makes them feel that uplifts them, and that they feel that is their that their religion is the best. Basically, everybody probably believes that their religion is the best. If you would not believe that yourself, you would have already changed your religion, right? So let them believe that their religion is the best, let him believe that their religion is the best, but I still think my religion is the best, because that's how. Well, not everybody chooses their religion, of course. That's another thing. You're born into a religion and then, yeah. But, conversion to another religion by force, I think, is very wrong. That's not a good thing. If it comes from real understanding and a person is completely free to choose and says, yeah, I feel much more that that's my religion, then there should be kind of freedom like that also, but not by force. So it's not like, that that Buddhism is the best religion, but I feel Buddhism is the best religion for me, if you say it like that. Yeah. It suits me, and I don't need anything else. And you may have the freedom to think the same for your religion.
What is your comment about, I've read in the newspaper about, there was a reporter asked Dalai Lama, what is the best religion? And he answered, the best religion is religion which can make you satisfied. What is your comment? I've read in Kopas's newspaper.
Yes, I can understand that. Maybe he also said some more things about not just satisfied, but make you feel peaceful and happy. If that is the case with your religion, then of course, yes. Now, some people feel very satisfied being a born-again Christian, for instance. They don't want to hear anything else. So this is a kind of a diplomatic answer also, in a way. The Dalai Lama also never sort of claims that Buddhism is the only religion is better than others. He even doesn't. He even goes, when he goes to a place to teach, he says, better to remain in your own religion. But if there is something that you can learn from Buddhism, then I may have something to say like that. Yes.
Okay.
Well. Yes, how to respect other religions if you know that, for instance, they advocate very, very different things, and sometimes very cruel things which do not, do not fit into our religion as Buddhism. And how far can you go in tolerating that, or how far can you go in respecting that? Yes. Well. It's not an easy question, especially, because some religions are becoming more and more fundamentalist, and also more what you call radical and fanatic. So in that case, they actually, according to me, they do not really follow the original teachings of the founder of those religions. They have probably become radicalized or fanatic because of certain misunderstandings or interpretations according to themselves. And as long as it does not really affect your own life or the lives of your people, let's say Buddhists in that country, if they don't really, hinder you in the practice of your own religion, then I think one can easily respect the other religions. But of course, part of the question was, how far do you go in accepting, and what is the bottom line, or what is the border beyond which you cannot tolerate? Yeah. Well, there is some teaching of the Buddha where when the followers of the Buddha went abroad to other countries, to other places, and they were asking, what if people are laughing at us? What shall we do? And the Buddha said, well, you should not take any notice, no revenge or anything. Don't worry about it. And then in another question, but what if they throw stones at us? And the Buddha said, well, in that case also you should not mind, otherwise you're not really a follower of us. But what if they cut us up piece to piece? Well, I don't think I can tolerate even when they cut up my one big toe, you see. So my bottom line is also not unlimited, On the other hand, I think one should not do things that may antagonize other people's feelings, to condemn them for being this, that, or the other religion, or look down on them. So in that sense, let them practice their own. Now, for instance, when you say, you just tell that in some cases they, some radical Muslims would tolerate, if you kill non-believers, or if they rape non-believers, that doesn't matter, but you don't do that to your own people. That is, I don't think, a teaching of the Islam itself. It's some kind of crazy idea. It's not easy, and I cannot prescribe something for every situation also. I would not encourage such behavior. I don't know how you can actually make a fanatic person listen to anything that you would like to tell them. Sometimes they react more fiercely if you try to counteract them. I also feel a little bit bad to say you just ignore it, because as you say, there are examples where they already do that. Yes, there are examples in Bangladesh, also in Thailand. In Burma, it's a little bit different case, you know, where Buddhists also kill Muslims. I used to think that Indonesia is one of the most tolerant countries as far as Islam is concerned. Although I do realize that, you know, when the Borobudur was opened after the restoration in 1970s, there was a bomb. And also here there were some bombs. So that doesn't mean, and even, you know, like when the World Trade Center came down in September 11 in 2001, everybody was looking at, oh, they have done this, you know, but they means they are not all. So I think there are some people who are fanatic who are doing that. It's hard to say. One thing that is good, what I find about Buddhism, and that is one reason also why I became a Buddhist, is that Buddhism does not encourage fanaticism at all. You know, Buddhism teaches the middle path, and also not to cling to ideas or concepts. If you have a person, a young man, let's say, let him be brainwashed and then cling to those ideas, become fanatic, then they can do anything, yeah. So I would say as facing it with as much of equanimity as you can, and not to generalize, you know, and to take people as individuals also. Sometimes you find if you take an individual, it's very, very okay, nice people. But when we think about the whole group, sometimes we think, oh, they are like this, they are like this. In Israel, for instance, between the Arabs and Jews, you know, there are people who are very friendly with each other, and they say, yeah, they also want peace, and they also like to live in harmony. But yeah, on both sides, not everybody apparently.
Good evening, Olande. My name is Deta. I just want to ask, should we be vegetarian? Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the short answer. But first you could try the vegetarian restaurants or at home with this mock meat, mock duck, mock chicken, mock fish, you know, which tastes like the real thing and it chews like the real thing, but it is made of either gluten or something else. Yeah, if it is from your own wish and from your own idea that you know, animals should not be suffering death because of us, and if you find it is a hindrance in your meditation, like metta bhavana, may all beings be well and happy, including the fish that just landed in my stomach, you know, like that sort of thing, then yeah, it's better to be vegetarian. But when you're vegetarian, you have to make sure that you get enough vitamin B. I had a problem. I've been a vegetarian for 40 years, and for quite a long time I didn't take extra vitamin B12, and then I had some problems with that. Now I have to take pills and, yeah, for some time injections. So, and also not just to leave out all the meat, fish, and have hardly any vegetables. You have to replace, make a balanced diet. So to look up some cookery books on vegetarian cooking would be a good idea.
Bante explained about 5 niyama.
Yes.
So the first 2 niyama, bija and utu, we cannot do anything about this. Is it right or wrong? Okay, that's the first question. So we don't really can affect the utu, bija and utu niyama. Okay. The second question is about the law of karma. Since everything based on the mind, so the chitta niyama affect the karma niyama.
Yes.
So the third question is, what is the ideal thought? What is the ideal citta niyama that we can develop, that we should develop in our life? I hope that's what I understand.
Yeah, let us first start with the first question about this bija niyama and uttu niyama. Apparently you said that it looks like you cannot do anything about that. Yes, in a way you cannot do something about that, but for instance, you can move from Indonesia to China or to Holland or to Greenland or, if you like it cold. So you can do something in your lifetime that changes the influence of the climate. If you find the country is not free, maybe you can go to a country which is free, with economic opportunities and things like that. So I think in that way, uttu niyama you can do something about. But bija niyama, if it is just from the parents and the grandparents, no, we cannot do much about that. But we can take certain precautions with medicines if we know that we can get something because of the, when then we see, this comes from the bija niyama, we have to take certain medicines, maybe. Then the question of the interrelationship between kamma niyama and citta niyama, you asked about that the mind is the forerunner of everything, and also the intention with which you do comes from citta, but it is also influencing the karma. Yes, because of the intention with which you do something, it is the karma niyama. But when you are actually making new and fresh karma, but the karma which comes from the past in the form of vipaka or results, you cannot do anything about. But what you can do in reacting to the past karma, that there you can do something in the present. And then what kind of ideal citta niyama, of what kind of ideal thought or mind we should develop? Yeah. Well, I mean, try to avoid the unskillful and to develop the skillful, the kusala, and then to develop your mind, clean the mind, maybe out from lobha, dvesha, moha, sabba papassa akaranam, kusalasa upasampada, satchitta pariyodapanam, etang buddhanusasanam. That means, try to avoid the akusala, develop the kusala, and clean your mind. Maybe with sati, belajar satipatthana, belajar mindfulness, yeah. And then you will be well and happy. Okay.
Ada komentar dari saudara Samuel? Cukup ya dari kalimat.
Is it mind and soul refer to the same thing? And the second one is, in Buddhism, do we also have like the end of the world prophecy like in other religions? Because there are so many wrong information spreading around about this. Thank you.
Let's see. Mind and soul. No, they are not exactly the same. And the word soul, is a little bit complicated because in different languages and also in different religions, they have different concepts about what is the soul. Now, for instance, the Buddha says there is no such thing as an eternal, unchanging, everlasting soul. That is the anattavadi, what they call the philosophy of anatta, no soul. But that is sometimes very much misunderstood in the sense what the Buddha said is actually to oppose the concept in Hinduism where they say there is an eternal, everlasting, unchanging soul which goes from life to life without changing itself. Only the clothes that it takes on is a different person and, different feelings and so on. But in Buddhism, we think that what is called the mind or the stream of consciousness, that includes, the mind, is a changing, ever-changing stream, like a river. You call it by a certain name, like the Mississippi River, but every moment there's different water in there. You call it by Stephanie, and then every moment there are different feelings and different thoughts, and body and mind is changing. So that is the changing soul, if you like, or the changing mind or stream of consciousness. So if you would say that mind and stream of consciousness, yes, but I don't know whether the stream of consciousness contains, it does contain also, what we have seen and heard and smelled and tasted and felt and thought. All that is also there. But when that stream of consciousness then leaves the body, then you don't have the new impact of the senses. But it continues with all the contents that it had. But also changing little by little. And then, what was Lexi, the second part of the question? The prophecy of the end of the world. There is some teaching in the Buddha also that there are certain periods that the world will be destroyed by earth, by water, by fire, or by air. And that there are cycles in Buddhism. It's not that then the world ends forever, but it is like a period in which, for instance, even on this earth, there are periods when there is Buddhism, and then there's a time that there's no Buddhism. Buddhism also gets to decline, and then later on another Buddha comes. Like the Maitreya Buddha Bodhisattva is now waiting to be born on this earth. So I do remember when I was very small, my parents and our family, we were traveling by car in France, going past Switzerland to Italy, and there were people sitting on the Mont Blanc, on the mountain, waiting for the end of the world, And then a couple of years ago in Russia, a whole group of people were under the ground waiting for the end of the world, and the police had to come and take them out, and nothing really happened. And also when we had 1999 and 2000, that they expected a big something. And when the Mayan calendar came to an end recently, they also expected an end to the world, but so far nothing happened. But there are signs, yes, they can say all these wars and all these earthquakes and all these fires and all that kind of thing. I don't know if it is really, this, according to the yugas, what they call, different sort of eras, this is supposed to be the ending of the Kali Yuga, and then Satya Yuga is supposed to come, the good time. But I don't know exactly which date that is, whether we will still see it in our lifetime. Cukup?
Cukup. Cukup ya, saya kira tidak ada tambahan lagi, ada komentar. More than enough.
Okay then.
For tonight, I think.
Yes, for tonight.
Because we have still